Welcome to Grandpa Hill's True Stories. These stories are dedicated to my children, my grandchildren, and all children.
This story is a faith and family story that truly happened to me and my wife Mary Lee at the Y. It is also a story about a COVID-19 blessing. As you know, if you've listened to very many of Grandpa Hill's true stories, that after Grandpa Hill got married and had a few children, we just started homeschool. And we really loved it, and we did really well at it. So we're always very excited to hear about homeschooling and about parents devoting themselves to homeschooling and their children being turned towards their parents, parents towards children, children towards parents. It's been really, really good.
Well, early on, during the COVID-19 scare, during the pandemic, I was busy looking for good things that were happening, trying to look on the bright side. So I thought that when schools closed and went to totally online learning, millions of children were going to get schooled in their homes by default. That's all that was available. It was either that or no school. Zoom school. That would mean millions would get to see how little their children were learning in their school settings and what the subjects and lessons were. They would be concerned, they'd find justification and courage to strike out on their own and truly homeschool their children, not just doing public school at home. So one of the blessings or positives that I saw in COVID-19 would be a surge in homeschooling. And I myself am always looking for and encouraging new homeschoolers. So I thought about how many thousands and thousands of parents would see those shortcomings of the public school and the private school sometimes. They would taste the benefits of homeschooling, and they would just quit the brick and mortar schools. Then I started meeting some of those new homeschoolers. One that stood out to me was Dan and his son. Back in 2022, Dan, he's an insurance broker for Medicare supplemental insurance, was one such person. Dan and his wife decided to homeschool their son. It was tough, he said, especially because of his and his son's interest in sports. Well, not long after the schools opened back up, after the COVID was done and schools were open, they decided brick and mortar school with bus rides and, most importantly, with sports was better for their family. As I look at the data I can find online, it seems that a similar story was happening all across America. Parents, whether they liked what they saw or not, wanted their children back into the school that they had been in when COVID started. They wanted them there for socialization, for sports, for convenience, and I don't know all the other reasons, but that's where they went, back to school. So those millions that were out of school and learning at home went back to the brick and mortar school. Oh well, my wishful thinking was just that. Then I hadn't much thought about it for the last couple of years until I met Melissa at the Y. I was in the pool helping my grandson Eddie. This was just in January of 2024. He is recovering from meningeal encephalopathy and making some progress. And there was my wife on the bleachers. Mary Lee was up there. She was done working out and was waiting on Eddie and me. Also, there was a younger woman there, maybe in her 30s, looking right at her, and she was closer to her than might normally be the case and paying close attention, a little more than people usually do when Mary starts talking. Mary looked so happy and animated. It looked like that she looked so happy. She gets that really happy look on her face sometimes, just after having an epileptic seizure. And the lady she was talking to seemed so interested and was intently listening. So much so that I thought Mary had actually seized.
I got out of the pool quickly,
leaving my grandson to his dad, Michael, and investigated the situation. Mary was fine, just talking and having a very good time, as she often does meeting someone new. I say hello, and I find out this lady is a relatively new homeschooler, and she was interested in other homeschoolers and their stories, and especially in those that have years of experience and success as we have had. I briefly told her our story of how our homeschooling journey started with disappointment with the push for values clarification from our local Catholic school in Minnesota. They were not going to be teaching virtues and character training the way we would like to do with our children. That was way back in 1989. You can get details on that if you're interested in the episode on how Don and Mary decide to homeschool. So after I find out what that conversation is about, I head off to the locker room and then get back to Mary Lee, and I wanted to know more about the lady. When I got back to Mary, they were still strongly discussing and sharing about their homeschooling. I got to hear the lady's story. COVID, that's what got her started with homeschooling. She saw how little the learning had been going on for her son, and how very little he was reading, which was really surprised her because her and her husband were definitely into the reading, lots of books. So he'd read what was assigned. He wasn't that interested in the sci-fi. They all had to read the same thing, and it was just a few books per year. So not right. She and her husband were. It was so not right. She and her husband were into books and reading so much, and her 15-year-old son was just doing what was required. Well, they started homeschooling, and they found something that he was interested in. The son started reading World War II books. He was, in her words, devouring them. And last year had read 28 books, and apparently liked it very much. She commented about how her acquaintances just could not imagine staying home all day with their child or children, especially a teenager. Her understanding seems to be that when you are with someone you love and care about, and you are getting on to the same page, so to speak, well, then what seems to be an unimaginable burden to others, to her, was a joy, just pure joy. That's when I found out her name. It was Melissa. I told her about our podcast, Grandpa Hill's True Stories. What I didn't tell her was how happy she made me. I was happy Mary was having a great time. I was happy to meet a parent that is turning her heart to her child, and her child is turning toward her. That's a beautiful thing. Happy about the effects that I could imagine were going on in that family. But my joy did not stop there. I was confident of the effects that she and her son would have. I could easily imagine those effects going to her children's children, the people she meets, the people her son will inspire. Her devotion to and embracing of homeschooling made me very happy, filled with joy to have met and listened to her even just for those few minutes, as the parking meter was soon to expire and we had to go. What I failed to do right then and there, besides tell her about how joyful and happy we were, was to give her our contact information, to invite her to our monthly square dance, where she and her son would have fun and meet many homeschoolers. I also failed to tell Melissa about PHAA, which is Pennsylvania's Homeschool Accreditation Agency. I think we will see Melissa at the Y again. Then I will give her those contacts and resources, and I will invite her to the square dance. Until then, I will just advise her and anyone else interested in homeschooling their children to contact PHAA, the Pennsylvania Homeschoolers Accreditation Agency. It's PHAA.org, the acronym PHAA. I will tell her that through PHAA, you will be able to get contacts with homeschoolers, homeschooling students, especially teenagers in the diploma program, and many experienced and qualified homeschool evaluators that are in the Ligonier area. She will also get access to the excellent accredited diploma program, webinars on methods and process for homeschooling, especially teenagers, and most importantly, for her son and her, they get connection, more connection. Just go to the PHAA website. It is PHAA.org, and expand the possibilities for you and your son as your homeschool flourishes. That would be my message to her. Maybe she's listening because I gave her the website. I gave her the podcast. As I said at the start, I was thinking the worst. Millions just back in the school system. But after meeting Melissa at the Y, I was motivated to go back and check out the numbers again and see if I could find out what was going on with homeschooling. What I found with just a few clicks was that my hope for a homeschooling surge had been fulfilled. According to parentingmode.com on homeschooling, from 2016 to 2019, there was an increase of 200,000 homeschoolers. That's maybe about normal. That was 66,000 new students per year. In 2019 to 2021, increased 1,200,000 or 600,000 per year. Now, I'm probably looking at the numbers wrong, but that's almost 10 times more per year for new homeschoolers. I encourage my listeners to research the benefits of homeschooling and decide what sort of person you would like your child to be, and see where your heart takes you. Shalom.